What up, fam? It's your boy Aaron coming to you again from First and Faithful with part 2 of the biggest what ifs in 49er franchise history. And by history, I mean the last 40 years or so. But as always, do me a favor, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell icon. Multiple videos a week, Thursday and Sunday. If any breaking news hits, I'll always drop a video. If you want to know my thoughts on the Jamal Adams trade to the Seahawks, you can click right there. Also, if you want to see part 1 of this video, numbers 10 through 6, you can also click right there, and that will take you to that as well. Thank you as always for watching. Let's jump right in. The 2005 NFL Draft, we all know how this went down. Niners had the number 1 pick. Took Alex Smith over Aaron Rodgers. For weeks, the buildup was really had come down to which one the Niners would take out of those two. Obviously, it went with Smith. Left Rodgers in the green room in probably the most watched draft footage of all time. Sitting there, not particularly happy. You kind of felt bad for him. It kind of became a running joke after a while until the Packers picked him with the 24th pick. We all know what happened from there. Rodgers went to Green Bay. Ironically enough, Smith's first OC in San Francisco was Mike McCarthy, who would leave after that year to become the Packers head coach. We all know what Rodgers did with McCarthy. Lots of wins, Super Bowl appearance, and title. We also know what happened with Smith. Lots of rotating OCs and coaches until finally, got his chance to succeed with Jim Harbaugh. Things went sideways there as well, and we all know the history that kind of transpired after that. The only reason this one is not higher for me is because I'm not sure what Rodgers would have done with that rotating cast of OCs and coaches in San Francisco. I'm not sure he would have succeeded like he did in Green Bay. The advantage he had in Green Bay was that, he had McCarthy pretty much outside of his rookie season. He had McCarthy. He was able to sit behind Favre and learn the system for a couple years before he became a starter. And also their cast, offensively at least, was much better than what Smith had in San Francisco. So that's why that's number 5, not 2 or 3 or so. Who are Winston Moss and Bruce Hill? If you said the players drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers with the picks the Niners sent in exchange for Steve Young, kudos to you. But yeah, obviously we know who got the better end of that trade for sure. Obviously this trade is huge in Niner history, not so much for Tampa Bay, but definitely in Niners history. Allowed the Niners to go from one Hall of Fame quarterback to another, kind of like we just referenced with Aaron Rodgers, the Favre to Rodgers transfer. Kind of the same scenario here. Young was able to kind of sit behind Montana, learn the system, got kind of opportunities to play here and there as Montana, suffered a lot of injuries, so missed a decent amount of games. Young's got a great opportunity to play behind Montana, and then also, once Montana finally left, Young stepped in. Team remained very good. Won the Super Bowl in '94, obviously, and were obviously contenders pretty much every season after that. Quick side note, quick fun fact: Vinny Testaverde, who was drafted with the number 1 pick the following season after the Steve Young trade by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Fun fact: he played 6 seasons in Tampa Bay, had more interceptions in those 6 seasons than Steve Young had in his entire 15-year career. That's how good Steve Young was, and I won't say how bad Vinny was, but definitely kind of puts that in proper perspective for sure. This one and number 2 on the list, I had a really tough time deciding which one to put as the 3 spot, which one to put the 2 spot. I kind of went back and forth. I finally settled that this one is 3. Where do we begin with this? Leonard Marshall, first of all, Leonard Marshall tattooing Joe Montana. I remember this. I was 9. at the time. I really liked a couple seasons before I kind of got into football. By now, I kind of understood the game and the players, and so this was a very, this game is very vivid to me. And this play in particular, when Marshall just destroys Joe Montana, is a vision that's a memory that's kind of burned into my memory. As a kid, I thought he had legit thought he had killed Joe Montana. I mean, just destroys him. Obviously, after this, that injured Joe Montana, and that pretty much ended his career with the Niners. Missed the whole next season. Was traded the season after that. Played, I believe, one game or one half against Detroit. I believe it was 2 seasons later. But this hit pretty much ended his career with the Niners. And then, obviously you get to the Roger Craig fumble, which, as great as Roger Craig was for the Niners, I know when you say Roger Craig, a lot of fans, the first thing they think of is this fumble. Obviously this took away their opportunity at a three-peat. Would have been the first team to do it, possibly the only team to do it, but definitely had a great opportunity to be the first and only team to three-peat. This after this season as well, Ronnie Lott left there soon after, Roger Craig left soon after, so this was, definitely a chance to cement, a lot of those players. Give him, Ronnie Lott could have gotten his 5th ring. He had been on all 4 previous championship teams. This could have gotten him his 5th ring. If Steve Young had, presumably would have been the starter, obviously with Joe Montana hurt. They win that game. Obviously that gives him a 2nd ring. Maybe we talk about him as even higher up on the list of all-time quarterbacks. The ripple effects of this is kind of crazy. Seifert gets a 2nd/3rd ring as a head coach. Definitely changed a lot of the things. The hit alone, if Joe Montana, that hit never happens, obviously the ripple effect is, does Steve Young get his chance to start? Who knows what happens if Joe Montana never gets hit by Leonard Marshall, doesn't get hurt, they win in their championship. Who knows if Joe might stick around for the next 5 years. There is no way to know what happens. Obviously, Steve takes over, has a great career from there. So that's why this is really high up for me. Not as high up as the next one. Like I said, it's kind of a toss-up. And I honestly, if someone had these flip-flop, obviously wouldn't be very upset with that. Oh boy, the Jim Harbaugh years. This is, there are so many what ifs in this era. 4 years Harbaugh was coach. It's kind of insane. I don't know if a coach has had as much impact in such a short time as Jim Harbaugh did, from legacies and what ifs, as Jim did. Let's start with the first NFC Championship game, the Kyle Williams fumbles, and what the butterfly, the ripple effect of that. If he doesn't fumble, let's say the Niners win that game. Let's say they win the Super Bowl, right? They go on, they win the Super Bowl. Alex Smith is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. Now let's fast forward to that next season when Smith gets hurt, Kaepernick takes over, and becomes Kaepernick. Smith never plays for the Niners again. Now, does that change if Alex Smith is not just Alex Smith, but Super Bowl winning quarterback Alex Smith at that time? Does he just automatically take over the job as soon as he comes back and he's healthy? If that happens, maybe Kaepernick's just a bench guy, back up, gets in here and there, but Kaepernick goes and becomes Kaepernick, maybe gets traded, who knows? But Alex Smith wins Super Bowl. There's a good chance he doesn't get benched for Kaepernick when he gets injured the next season, and that's why that's such a big time. Obviously, Harbaugh gets a Super Bowl, in theory gets his extension, et cetera, et cetera. Then we fast forward, obviously that, to the next season, Super Bowl 47, the goal line, we all know 4 straight passes, doesn't work. they lose. What that does for legacies for Harbaugh himself. Almost assuredly gets a new contract. I don't care what was going on about Balk and all that. He gets a contract. I firmly believe that he gets his contract. What does that do for Kaepernick's legacy? Think about that. The big comeback, they win. I mean, just from a Niners fan perspective, he is forever, one of our guys. Just forever, period. Not saying he's not, but, you had a Super Bowl winning, a Super Bowl title to that. He is forever one of our guys. It changes his legacy. It changes, I think, a lot about how we look at Kaepernick. How we look at Harbaugh. Randy Moss gets a ring. As great as Randy Moss is, never got a ring, played in 2 Super Bowls, never got a ring, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. But he gets a ring, probably the last kind of missing part of his career. Patrick Willis, who was up for Hall of Fame this last season, having a Super Bowl ring probably puts him over the top. He's in the Hall right now. I do believe he'll get in eventually, but I think that would have been the thing that put him over the top, first ballot Hall of Famer. Also from the Ravens side, the Niners win. We never have to hear the words Joe Flacco and elite put together in the same sentence. If anything, outside the Niners losing, the biggest loss for all of us is that we had to call Joe Flacco elite, or even think about whether he was elite or not. We all know he isn't. He was just a quarterback who happened to get hot at the right time, have one hot playoff run capped off. Good for him. So I'm not taking anything from him, but to say he was elite, it's kind of crazy. But just obviously the effect that this, just a whole Harbaugh, those 4 years had on so many players, the coach, the owner, how we looked at Jed York after that, how we looked at Balk, all those things are tied into that 4 years. We look at Jed a little bit nicer now because Kyle Shanahan and Lynch and the success they've had, but a lot of people really blame Jed York pretty much until we turned the ship around this last season, that Jed York had ruined this franchise. And I think if they win the Super Bowl, he gives them extension, all that, I think kind of changes his legacy, Harbaugh's legacy for sure, Kaepernick's, Smith's. There's so many players that if they won just one Super Bowl, it just changes so much. And that's for me why that's number 2 on the list. Now this one is my number 1, and I know a lot of people probably wouldn't think of Super Bowl 23 as the number 1. We all know Montana, the Taylor for the game winner with 34 seconds left. Rice with his MVP performance, one of the greatest Super Bowl performances we've ever seen. Bill Walsh goes out on top. Remember the locker room scene. He's crying. Brent Musburger's asked him, is this his last game as Niners coach? He's crying with his son. Really touching moment. And that's kind of why I have this number 1. Because the what if here is, what if they don't win? What if the Bengals win? And where it starts is with Bill Walsh. He was able to go out on top, which is, how everyone wants to go out on top. If they lose, does he come back the next season? I mean, that team was ready. And you saw it the next season. I mean, they just blew through everybody, through the playoffs, blew through the Broncos. I mean, this team was locked and loaded. Does Bill Walsh decide, you know what, I want to go on top. This team is ready. Let's go. If he does that, the effect is, Seifert was named head coach. Their DC, George Seifert was named head coach. He was interviewing for a lot of different places. Does he end up leaving after that season regardless? And if so, who was OC at the time? This guy, Mike Holmgren was OC. He's there. Does he, because he sticks around, does he become the head coach? So say they win Super Bowl 24, Bill says, okay, cool, I'm out, got to go on top. Mike Holmgren becomes head coach. Mike Holmgren becomes head coach. Think of how that changes so much in the NFL, just kind of history. He would leave after the 91 season. to obviously go coach the Packers. Let's say he stays, becomes head coach of the Niners. Brett Favre is now the thing. The Packers don't become a thing again. The Packers have been kind of a middling team. They were kind of all right, but obviously Holmgren got there, changed that team, brought in Brett Favre, 3-time MVP. They went to the Super Bowl, went to 2 Super Bowls, won one. I mean, what Holmgren did with that was huge. Let's say he doesn't go. He stays with the Niners, becomes head coach, does not go to the Packers. It's possible. There is no such thing as Brett Favre. Brett Favre, as we know, as Brett Favre, isn't a thing. He was a backup in Atlanta. Jerry Glanville basically had said, I will never play this guy. Brett Favre might become a career backup, may even trade some other team, isn't as good. Brett Favre doesn't become the Brett Favre we know as Hall of Famer Brett Favre. For the Niners, I don't think they miss a beat. He worked with Steve Young, so I think even if the championship game in '90 happens, I don't think that changed anything. He stays. Young is just as good as he was. With Holmgren, they worked very well together. Young speaks very highly of Holmgren, so I think that changes that. Don't forget also, what does that do with Mike Shanahan? Mike Shanahan was the OC when the Niners won Super Bowl 29. Then he left, went to Denver, got John Elway his 2 Super Bowls, pretty much why he got into the Hall of Fame. That ripple effect. Maybe Mike Shanahan's not the OC, maybe he doesn't go to Denver, John Elway doesn't win the Super Bowls. John Elway may be that guy who never makes it into the Hall of Fame because he just never won a ring. So that, you might be not thinking of John Elway, the helicopter, and oh my God, this one's for John, that's out the window. Charles Davis, that's out the window. Maybe Kyle Shanahan isn't a thing, because his dad isn't, considered the genius that he is, and maybe Kyle doesn't get the chances that he has gotten because of that, So there's, like I said, that's why for me that's number one. It changes such a big part of NFL history, the butterfly effect, if you will, of all these things. Bill Walsh not retiring, they don't win the game. Bill Walsh doesn't retire. Seifert leaves. Mike Holmgren becomes head coach. There is no such thing as Brett Favre as we know it. The Packers don't, have a resurgence. And think about, from a Niner perspective, how big of a thorn Brett freaking Favre was in the Niners' side. How many times did we lose to him in the playoffs? I mean, year after year after year. I can think of 3 off the top of my head. I think there was 1 or 2 more. I mean, this dude was just a constant thorn in the Niners' side for so long. And think about, if he's not Brett freaking Favre, he's not paying the sides. Who knows how much more winning the Niners could have done. How many more titles they could have gotten if not for Brett Favre and the Packers being in the way. So that's why for me, I know it's a surprise, but that's why for me it is number 1. So that's it, fam. That's the end of the list, 5 through 1. What do you guys think? Leave me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about my top 10 overall. Let me know what you think about number 1. I know, like I said, this probably surprised a lot of people. I hope that makes sense. I want to kind of grade this on not only the effect on the Niners, but just kind of the butterfly, that ripple effect on everybody. So the whole league in general. So that's kind of why I put number 1, surprise number 1. But like I said, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about my list. As always, thank you for watching. This has been First and Faithful. I'm Aaron. Deuces. You silly gooses.